I'd at least like to acknowledge up front that I did just drop my entire cup of tea onto the floor up here. I also would like it known that one of my great talents is knowing just how many paper towels you need to fully clean up a spill without wasting paper towels or floor, and that I have succeeded once again in my mission. Hello, everyone. It's not how I wanted us to meet. When I was in college, which wasn't that long ago, I took the same class 6 times, and that class was it was a percussion class with this man named Mark, and it was on Thursday nights. It was a 1-credit fine arts class. It met for 1 hour, and as long as you showed up and you tried, you pretty much got an A. It's one of those kinds of classes. Mark, because of the nature of the class and the whole structure of it, not everyone tried or showed up that often. And every once in a while, this would upset Mark. And you could tell that Mark is a very patient man. You could tell that Mark was getting flustered when he would very gently set his drum down. He's a Buddhist cook. If you want to know patience, try irritating a Buddhist cook. We'd play these songs every week. We'd play the same songs over and over again for very, very long amounts of time. It was a drum ensemble, so you could kind of do things in a round and play around. But Mark would set his drum down and he said, I know what this class is. It's an easy F, which is a fine arts requirement, not a fail. He said it's an easy F on your Hamlin plan. And you don't need to respect me. I don't need to respect you. We don't owe each other anything, but he says, I've traveled all over the world, and I've learned these songs, and I have brought these songs back from the world to you, and we're playing them together. So if we owe each other anything, it's to respect this music that we're playing together. And that was something that he always said, was that if we owed each other anything, it was to respect the music that we were sharing. And that was kind of the first time I understood that art travels in a very specific way that's only carried by people and their desire and willingness to move that art around and share it with each other. And I later learned that I wanted to apply that to poetry in a very specific way that I'll talk to you about some other time. But I was just thinking about that on the way over here, was that Poetry Out Loud reminds me of learning drumming from Mark, because all this art, all these ideas, all these things that we revere so highly as people who are fans and takers in of the art, they just start in somebody's brain. And then they go out from there, and sometimes they travel the world in thousands or millions of different forms, and then somehow they all land back together in one place to be shared, which is what we're doing here. And I think about that with poetry, in that there are grants and scholarships for poetry and translation, in that you can move poetry from one language to another and be celebrated for that act of sharing things across cultures that they wouldn't otherwise cross. And so I was just thinking about what it means to be people sharing art, and what Poetry Out Loud, in a way, is like that, in that we've all chosen to be here in this moment, taking in these art forms and these pieces of art that have really moved around the world in all sorts of different ways, and that every once in a while you hear somebody has written another opinion column that says poetry is dead. And I think that Poetry Out Loud is really a testament to the fact that it's very much alive. So with that, welcome to Poetry Out Loud State Finals, Minnesota! If you met me yesterday, you know I might tell you a lot of dumb stories about my new dog. I hope you like those stories, because those are the ones I know how to tell. My name is Louis Mutt. I'm so very excited to be here. So excited to be here celebrating poetry and sharing in what we're doing here with Poetry Out Loud at the Loft Literary Center. Before we move too much farther, I'd like to tell you a bit about the Loft. I used to work here at the Loft. I still say we, because once you touch the Loft is with you always. I believe it's a lifelong organization that we're all carrying it with us. That said, the Loft offers educational programming and events and literary events for readers and writers of all ages 6 and up in the classroom, all ages outside the classroom. We have readers coming from all over the world to share this specific stage with us. You are in a room that has seen many feet of many pieces of art and many stories, as well as a robust education program in person, online, in libraries around the Twin Cities and in our online classrooms truly across the world. If you'd like to know more about the Loft, we do have various information on the lobby there, or you can visit loft.org, see our classes, see our events, learn who we are. There are some really phenomenal folks on staff, on our board, and volunteering around us, so I just wanted to plug the Loft and say thanks, Loft, for always doing the great things you do and bringing Poetry Out Loud to open book here in Minnesota. So that said, Poetry Out Loud, who is not quite sure what they're going to see tonight? Is everybody fairly, okay, so we've got some folks who aren't familiar with Poetry Out Loud. I'd like to tell you then, you are at the state competition of Poetry Out Loud, which is a high school level recitation competition. What you're gonna see tonight are 3 rounds of young writers and performers reciting poems not of their own creation. You're gonna see 3 rounds in that we're gonna have all 12 readers in the first 2 rounds. We're gonna take a break in between. And for the 3rd round, we're gonna move on to the top 6 performers that have been scored in the top 6, which I will tell you about the scoring and the judges in just a moment. Finals, you say? What is on the line at finals? I would like to tell you all about that. And I'm going to tell you verbatim, so we're all on the same page. Minnesota State winner, tonight, will receive $200 and an all-expenses-paid trip to Washington, D.C. to compete at the national finals. The state champion school will be awarded with a $500 stipend for the purchase of poetry books. The winner and their teacher will also each win a $100 Loft gift certificate. The runner-up will receive $100, and his or her school will receive $200 to purchase poetry books for their library. The winner of the national championship will receive $20,000 to put towards college tuition. A total of $50,000 in scholarships and school stipends will be awarded to the winners at the national level. So, poetry is heating up right quick here at Open Book tonight, and it gets even bigger from here. So before we go any farther in the program, can we give a round of applause to all of the readers who are here tonight? I had the true honor, and I do not say that lightly, of seeing all these folks perform yesterday. Y'all, if you weren't here yesterday, are in for quite a treat. These are some really amazing folks, and I'm so excited to see what they'll be doing this evening. As it is a competition, there are some rules. I'm going to read those to you, just so, again, everybody knows what's going on. The students competing in the state and national finals must meet specific criteria with their poem selection. The following guidelines are stated in the teacher's guide. 1 of the 3 poems selected must be pre-20th century. 1 of the 3 poems selected must be 25 lines or shorter in length, and 1 poem may satisfy both criteria and may be the student's 3rd poem. All poems must be selected from the Poetry Out Loud print or online anthology, and students may not use props or wear costumes during their recitations. I have not closely inspected that side of the room, but I think we're at least safe on costumes. I cannot make any guarantee for props. We may see them. Hopefully we won't, though. Notes on the evaluation criteria that this wonderful table of judges will be using this evening to score these readers. Rankings are based solely on the evaluation sheets submitted by the judges. Judges are not allowed to convene to discuss performances during the competition or reconsider their scores. Once the scores are down and passed to the end of the table, those are the scores, those are locked in, and those do not change. Students are judged based on the quality of their performance, specifically these elements: physical presence, voice and articulation, dramatic appropriateness, evidence of understanding, and overall performance, as well as the accuracy of their recitation. At this event, there are 4 performance judges and 1 accuracy judge. Scoring is cumulative. The scores from all rounds will be added together to determine the winner, and the scores from the first 2 rounds will be added together to determine the 6 that move to the 3rd round. So, that's what we're up to this evening with Poetry Out Loud. Are we excited to have some fun with poetry this evening? Great. I make everyone clap a lot. I hope everybody's ready for that. I think there's a lot to celebrate, especially in the Twin Cities when it comes to literature. Before we get to the readers, I would like to introduce you to our esteemed panel of judges here at the front table. If you could just give a little wave when I say your name, if you would. Ed Bach-Lee is the author of World, a recipient of the 2012, a recipient of the 2012 American Book Award and the Minnesota Book Award in Poetry, and Real Karaoke People, a recipient of the 2006 Penn Open Book Award and the Asian American Literary Award for Members' Choice. Lee grew up in South Korea, North Dakota, and Minnesota, and was educated there and on both US coasts, Russia, Kazakhstan, and South Korea. Anitra Budd is a freelance editor and writer. She has experience editing a wide range of fiction and nonfiction titles, including novels, short story collections, essays, how-to guides, and educational materials. In her former role as editor at Coffee House Press, she worked with a number of authors, including Kristen Kashuk, T. Geronimo Johnson, Kate Bernheimer, Ron Padgett, and Christopher Merkner. She is currently a visiting assistant professor in the English department at Macalester College. Taya Rosman Clark is the executive director of Green Card Voices. Previously, Ms. Rosman Clark has worked for Reconciliation and Reconciliation and Culture Cooperative Network, a New York City nonprofit working with immigrants from the former Yugoslavia. Ms. Clark is a New York University graduate in Near and Middle Eastern Studies and has a PhD in Cultural History from the University of Nova Gorica, specializing in oral history recording. She is a first-generation immigrant from Slovenia. Lula Saleh is an Eritrean and Ethiopian Muslim poet, writer, singer, and organizer who was born and raised between Saudi Arabia, the UK, and East Africa. Lula was a Gibbons African American Writer Fellow and has performed and read her work at Intermedia Arts, Mama Mosaic Black Women's Cabaret, the Minnesota Orchestra Hall and Youth Prize as a Meeting of the Minds artist, the Loft Literary Center as an African artist curated by Carolyn Holbrook's Black Women's Writers Series, among others. Those folks are your performance judges this evening. I'd like to introduce you to our accuracy judge, Molly Fuller. She is the Outreach and Development Manager at the University of Minnesota Press and former production editor of Coffee House Press. When not working, she can usually be found with her nose in a book or crossword puzzle or wrangling a wild animal someone misleadingly told her was a dog. You can follow Molly on Twitter at Tamale Bruce. Students, Molly, if you don't mind waving one more time, Molly will be your accuracy judge this evening. If you do need a line during one of your poem, if you need the next line of your poem, just look at her, say the word line, and she will give you the next line. She will not prompt if not given that specific cue. So Molly will be your go-to this evening if you need it. And finally, our scorekeeper of Fresthau is an advocate for the arts, believing art is direct energy from the soul. As a hip-hop pioneer of the Hmong Academy, among the Hmong American community, he has been an active lyricist, performer, producer, and mentor since the early 90s. Frez is also the founder of Figure 8 Loops Media and executive director emeritus of the Center for Hmong Arts and Talent. Folks, that's all I have to tell you before we get into this. Our state finals competition of Poetry Out Loud. Is everyone ready for poetry this evening? Maybe it's because I host events at bars and I'm used to really raucous people, but I believe we can do better. Is everyone ready for some poetry this evening? Wonderful. I'll be reading each student's name and then their bio, and then they'll be coming up to recite their poems. First up from Arcadia Charter School in Northfield, Anna Kochever enjoys creating art, serving on her local Healthy Community Initiative board, and spending time with family. She hopes one day to become a doodler at Google or an animator at Disney. Anna Kochever.
The Gaff by C.K. Williams. 1. If that someone who's me, yet not me, yet who judges me is always with me, as he is, shouldn't he have been there when I said so long ago that thing I said? If he who rakes me with such not trivial shame for minor sins now were there then, shouldn't he have warned me he'd even now devastate me for my unpardonable affront? I'm a child then, yet already I've composed this conscience beast who harries me. Is there anything else I can say with certainty about who I was except that he could already draw from infinitesimal transgressions complex chords of remorse and orchestrate ever undiminishing retribution from the hapless rest of myself. 2. The son of some friends of my parents has died, and my parents, paying their call, take me along, and I'm sent out with the dead boy's brother and some others to play. We're joking around, and some words come to my mind, which to my amazement are said. How do you know when you can laugh when somebody dies? Your brother dies, is what's said, and the others go quiet. The backyard goes quiet. Everyone stares. And I want to know now why that someone in me, who's me, yet not me, let me say it. Shouldn't he have told me the contrition cycle would from then be ever upon me? It didn't matter that I'd really only wanted to know how grief ends and when. 3. I could hear the boy's mother sobbing inside, then stopping, sobbing, then stopping. Was the end of her grief already there? Had her someone in her told her it would end? Was her someone in her kinder to her, not tearing at her as mine did, still does, me, for guessing grief someday ends? Is that why her sobbing stops sometimes? She didn't laugh, though, or I never heard her. How do you know when you can laugh? Why couldn't someone have been there in me, not just to accuse me, but to explain? The kids were playing again. I was playing. I didn't hear anything more from inside. The way now sometimes what's in me is silent too. And sometimes, though, never really forgets.
Thank you, Anna. In between posts, we'll just give the judges a moment to send their scores down to the end of the table. I think the worst part about spilling that full cup of tea is that now there's a lot of smell of the tea all around me, and it's good, but I don't get to drink it, and that's very hard for me right now. But like I said, really nailed it on the paper towel to tea on the floor ratio, so feeling good about that. All right, up next, also from Arcadia Charter School in Northfield, Bella Caleri is passionate about theater, slam poetry, art, and activism. She plans to study medicine and advocate for reproductive rights. Please welcome Bella Caleri.
Falling, The Code, by Lee Young Lee. 1. Through the night, the apples outside my window, one by one, let go their branches and drop to the lawn. I can't see, but hear the stem snap, the plummet through leaves, then the final thump against the ground. Sometimes two at once, or one right after another. During long moments of silence, I wait and wonder about the bruised bodies, the terror of diving through air, and think I'll go tomorrow to find the newly fallen. But they all look alike, lying there dew-soaked, disappearing before me. 2. I lie beneath my window, listening to the sound of apples dropping in the yard. A syncopated code I long to know, which continues even as I sleep and dream. I know the meaning of what I hear. Each dull thud of unseen apple body, the earth falling to earth once and forever, over and over.
Thank you, Bella. The second worst part of spilling that tea everywhere was that it did get on my script. Not all over it, just on the bottom edge of the page. So my new goal as I'm here is to move along quickly enough that the script won't dry together and make that terrible cracking noise when I need to flip a page. Stay tuned to see how this plays out. Coming up next from Eastview High School in Apple Valley, Nancy G loves reading, writing, speaking, and anything involving the creative process in general. She has greatly enjoyed the experience of poetry out loud and will be bringing many great memories with her to the University of Minnesota Twin Cities this fall. Nancy G.
God's Secretary by R.S. Gwynn. Her email inbox always overflows. Her outbox doesn't get much use at all. She puts on hold the umpteen billionth call as music oozes forth to placate those who wait, then disconnect. Outside, wind blows, scything pale leaves. She sees a sparrow fall, fluttering to a claw catch on a wall. Will he be in today? God only knows. She's never seen his face, he's so aloof, and she's long resigned he'll never know or love her, but still can wish there were some call, some proof that he requires a greater service of her. Fingers of rain now drum upon the roof, coming from somewhere far above her.
Thank you, Nancy. I don't want you to all remember me as the guy who just stood up here and complained about dropping his tea for like 2 hours. So I want to say the best part of dropping that tea was that I somehow avoided getting any of it on me. And I'm not saying I'm a magician. I am, however, saying that's what I wanted to be when I grew up, when I was a little boy, and that I may have finally gotten there, and you were all here to see it. I'm happy for all of us. Coming up next, also from Eastview High School in Apple Valley, Sarah Most enjoys playing jazz music and riding her bike. She has participated in Poetry Out Loud since she was a freshman and is honored to have advanced to the next round of competition. Sarah Most.
A Locked House by W.D. Snodgrass. As we drove back, crossing the hill, the house still hidden in the trees, I always thought, fool's fear, that it might have caught fire. Someone could have broken in. As if things must have been too good here. Still, we always found it locked tight, safe and sound. I mentioned that once as a joke. No doubt we spoke of the absurdity to fear some dour god's jealousy of our good fortune. From the farm next door, our neighbors saw no harm came to the things we cared for here. What did we have to fear? Maybe I should have thought all such things rot, fall. Barns, houses, furniture. We too are stronger than we were apart. We've grown together. Everything we own can burn. We know what counts. Some such idea. We said as much. We'd watched friends driven to betray, felt that love drained away, some self they need. We'd said love like a growth can feed on hate we turn in and disguise. We warned ourselves that you might despise me. Hate all we both loved best. None of us ever guessed. The house still stands, locked as it stood untouched a good 2 years after you went. Some things passed in the settlement. Some things slipped away. Enough's left that I come back sometimes. The theft and vandalism were our own. Maybe we should have known.
Thank you, Sarah. I'd like to take you back just a few minutes to when I was talking about wanted to be a magician when I grew up. I think that's the first time in my life I've used the phrase, when I was a little boy. That's also an experience we all just had together. I'm less thrilled about us sharing that experience the first time I uttered that phrase. I feel like it's some sort of turning point. Coming up next, from the Harbor City International School in Duluth, Abigail Ederson is a senior at Harbor City International School and is proud to have represented Minnesota in last year's national competition. She is a dancer and a pianist and hopes to go on to study mathematics and philosophy. Abigail Ederson.
Degrees of Gray in Phillipsburg by Richard Hugo. You might come here Sunday on a whim. Say your life broke down. The last good kiss you had was years ago. You walk these streets laid out by the insane, past hotels that didn't last, bars that did. The tortured try of local drivers to accelerate their lives. Only churches are kept up. The jail turned 70 this year. The only prisoner is always in, not knowing what he's done. The principle supporting business now is rage. Hatred of the various grays the mountain sends, hatred of the mill, the silver bill repeal, the best liked girls who leave each year for Butte. One good restaurant and bars can't wipe the boredom out. The 1907 boom, 8 going silver mines, a dance floor built on springs. All memory resolves itself in gaze. In panoramic green, you know the cattle eat. Or 2 stacks, high above the town, 2 dead kilns. The huge mill in collapse for 50 years that won't fall finally down. Isn't this your life? That ancient kiss still burning out your eyes. Isn't this defeat so accurate? The church bell simply seems a pure announcement. Ring, and no one comes. Don't empty houses ring? Are magnesium and scorn sufficient to support a town, not just Phillipsburg, but towns of towering blondes, good jazz and booze the world will never let you have until the town you came from dies inside. Say no to yourself. The old man, 20 when the jail was built, still laughs, although his lips collapse. Someday soon, he says, I'll go to sleep and not wake up. You tell him no. You're talking to yourself. The car that brought you here still runs. The money you buy lunch with, no matter where it's mined, is silver. And the girl who serves your food is slender. And her red hair lights the wall.
Thank you, Abigail. For those of you following the plot, what you may not have seen is that I did, in fact, turn the page of my script. Did not stick together. I think we're gonna make it to the end without an issue there. Thank you all for being here as this goes on. I'll keep you updated. Up next, also from Harbor City International School, Signe Stromgren is a junior at Harbor City International School in Duluth. She loves dance, drawing, and literature, and surprised herself by boldly rising to the top in her school's Poetry Out Loud competition. Signe Stromgren.
The Legend by Garrett Hongo. In Chicago, it is snowing softly, and a man has just done his wash for the week. He steps into the twilight of early evening, carrying a wrinkled shopping bag full of neatly folded clothes, and, for a moment, enjoys the feel of warm laundry and crinkled paper, flannel-like against his gloveless hands. There's a Rembrandt glow on his face, a triangle of orange in the hollow of his cheek as the last flash of sunset blazes the storefronts and lit windows of the street. He is Asian, Thai, or Vietnamese, and very skinny, dressed as one of the poor in rumpled suit pants and a plaid mackinaw, dingy and too large. He negotiates the slick of ice on the sidewalk by his car, opens the Fairlane's back door, leans to place the laundry in, and turns, for an instant, toward the flurry of footsteps and cries of pedestrians. As a boy, that's all he was. Backs from the corner package store, shooting a pistol, firing at once at the dumbfounded man who falls forward, grabbing at his chest. A few sounds escape from his mouth, a babbling no one understands as people surround him, bewildered at his speech. The noises he makes are nothing to them. The boy is gone, lost in the light array of foot traffic, dappling the snow with fresh prints. Tonight, I read about Descartes' grand courage to doubt everything except his own miraculous existence, and I feel so distinct from the wounded man lying on the concrete. I am ashamed. Let the night sky cover him as he dies. Let the weaver girl cross the bridge of heaven and take up his cold hands. In memory of J. Kashi Wakamura.
Thank you, Signe. I want to take a brief moment to thank our sponsors. Poetry Out Loud is sponsored by the National Endowment for the Arts, the Poetry Foundation, and state arts agencies, such as the Minnesota State Arts Board, without whom Poetry Out Loud and programs like it truly would not be possible here in Minnesota. The Minnesota State Arts Board does so much to support arts and to support the goings-on in what is our extremely vibrant artistic community. So truly, from me as a person, as well as from us as Poetry Out Loud and a momentary representative of the Loft Literary Center, thank you to Minnesota State Arts Board for all you're doing and all you continue to do. And may we give back to you at least a little of what you've given to us. So thank you so much for that. Up next from Johnson High School in St. Paul, Alina Vang is an independent person who enjoys playing basketball, singing, and writing. She likes challenges and experiencing new things. Alina Vang.
One Art by Elizabeth Bishop. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost, that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day, except the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing farther, losing faster. Places and names, and where was you meant to travel? None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last or next to last of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones and vaster, some realms I owned, 2 rivers, a continent. I missed them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master. Though it may look like, write it, like disaster.
Thank you, Alina. Not to return to a tired subject, can you smell the tea from where you're sitting? Are you able to, a little bit? Okay, I thought I'd just trap myself in a small vortex of evening in Missoula and that I was here alone. Just wishing we could redo the past. I'm back. Up next, from St. Paul Academy and Summit School in St. Paul, Noah Carlson is a junior at St. Paul Academy. Noah Carlson.
The Nail by C.K. Williams. Some dictator or other had gone into exile, and now reports were coming about his regime. The usual crimes, torture, false imprisonment, cruelty, and corruption. But then a detail. That the way his henchmen had disposed of enemies was by hammering nails into their skulls. Horror. Then what mind does after horror, after that first feeling that you'll never catch your breath, mind imagines how not be annihilated by it. The preliminary tap feels it in the tendons of the hand, feels the way you do with your nail when you're fixing something, making something, shelves, a bed. The first light tap to set the slant, then the slightly harder tap to embed the tip a little more. No, no more. This should be happening in myth, in stone or paint, not in reality, not here. It should be an emblem of itself, not itself. Something that would mean, not really have to happen. Something to go out, expand an implication from that unmoved mass of matter in the breast, as in the image of an anguished face, in grief for us, not us as us. Us as in a myth, a moral tale, a way to tell the truth, that grief is limitless. A way to tell us we must always understand. It's we who do such things. We who set the slant, embed the tip, lift the sledge and drive the nail. Drive the nail which is the axis upon which turns the brutal human world. upon the world.
Thank you, Noah. I feel like I read a decent amount of poetry, but like that, that doesn't mean anything. There are like billions of poems out there, right? There are millions and billions of poems. And so a lot of these poems that we're hearing tonight, I heard for the first time in my life yesterday, and I'm just so excited to hear them again today. And I'm just worried that someone's gonna come up and say their poem name, and you're gonna hear me go, yes! But it's like hearing your favorite song played by a band one more time. So if you hear that noise, it's all fine. I'm just very excited. Up next from the Twin Cities Academy in St. Paul, Awazi Jafaru is a senior at Twin Cities Academy. She has been a state champion in dramatic interpretation. Awazi Jafaru.
American Smooth by Rita Dove. We were dancing. It must have been a foxtrot or a waltz, something romantic. But we're crying restraint, rise and fall, precise execution as we moved into the next song without stopping. Two chests heaving above the 7 league stride, such a perfect agony one learns to smile through. Ecstatic mimicry being the sine qua non of American Smooth. And because I was distracted by the effort of keeping my frame, the leftward lean, head turned just enough to gaze out past your ear and always smiling. Smiling. I didn't notice how still you'd become until we had done it for 2 measures. 4. Achieved flight. That swift and serene magnificence before the earth remembered who we were and brought us down.
Thank you, Awazi. We talked about me wanting to be a magician when I grew up. The other thing I really wanted to be was a professional hockey player. The main problem with that being that I've literally never played hockey in my life. Not even when I was tiny. I've touched a hockey stick and I've been on skates, but never at the same time. And I just remember meeting somebody who was like really good at piano. I was like, how'd you do that? They're like, oh, I've been doing it since I was a kid. I'm like, that was the step I missed, was doing the thing to get better at the thing you want to do. So here I am today, not a professional hockey player, for the record, in case you were wondering. Up next from Twin Cities Academy in St. Paul, Riva Denk loves volunteering at the local hospital. She is very passionate about poetry. Riva Denk.
Annabelle Lee by Edgar Allan Poe. It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabelle Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child, and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea, but we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabelle Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me, and this was the reason that long ago in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabelle Lee, so that her high-born kinsman came and bore her away from me, to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, when envying her and me, yes, that was the reason, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea, a wind came out of a cloud, chilling and killing my Annabelle Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we, and neither the angels in heaven above nor the demons down under the sea can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabelle Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabelle Lee, and the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabelle Lee. And so, all the night tide, I lay down by the side of my darling, my life, and my bride. In her sepulchre, there by the sea, in her tomb, by the sounding sea.
Thank you, Reva. I feel like the piano thing wasn't my fault, though. Because I took a piano lesson. I was, I think, 15, 16 at this point. I won't go above 16. I think I was under 16. But we met for the piano lesson, and about 5 minutes in, she looked at me very seriously and said, "I don't think this is gonna work." And we parted ways. And here I am today. I do not play piano. I'm fine. I'm a perfectly happy human being. But thank you for the noise. Up next from Wabasha Kellogg High School in Wabasha, Ashley Haxton is involved in a variety of extracurricular activities, including speech, theater, cross-country, track, band, choir, and math team. She loves reading and reciting poetry and is happy to have been given the opportunity to compete in Poetry Out Loud this year. Ashley Haxton.
The Bookshelf of the God of Infinite Space by Jeffrey Skinner. You would expect an uncountable number, acres and acres of books in rows like wheat or gold bullion, or that the words just appear in the minds like banner headlines. In fact, there is one shelf holding a modest number, 10 or 12 volumes. No dust jackets because no dust. Covers made of gold or skin or golden skin or creosote or rain-soaked macadam or some mix of salt and glass. You turn a page and mountains rise. Clouds drawn by children bubble in the sky. You are 20 again, trying to read a map, dissolving in your hands. I say you and mean me. Say God and mean librarian, who after long research offers you a glass of water and an apple. You, grateful to discover your name, a footnote in that book.
Thank you, Ashley. I just realized what happened when I told that story about the piano teacher. Just a few dozen parent radars went off, and you thought, what's her name and where does she live? And it's fine. It's totally fine. We have one more reader in this first round, and then we're going to take a brief 5-minute break so judges can do some tabulation, and so y'all can, if you need to, find some water, find a bathroom if you need it, and have not found it yet. Both can be found straight out this front door there, as if you just walked through these walls, you would eventually get to the bathroom. You can go around them, though. That's the better way to find them. Up next, also from Wabasha Kellogg, pardon me, Paul Cushman is involved in theater, track, cross-country, band, choir, piano, speech, math team, and of course, Poetry Out Loud. He looks forward to it every year, and he hopes that the audience enjoys the talent of the competition as much as he does. Paul Cushman.
The Bad Old Days by Kenneth Rexroth. The summer of 1918, I read The Jungle and The Research Magnificent. That fall, my father died and my aunt took me to Chicago to live. The first thing I did was to take a streetcar to the stockyards. In the winter afternoon, gritty and fetid, I walked through the filthy snow, through the squalid streets, looking shyly into the people's faces. Those who are home in the daytime, debauched and exhausted faces. Starved and looted brains. Faces like the faces in the senile and insane wards of charity hospitals. Predatory faces of little children. Then, as the soiled twilight darkened, under the green gas lamps and the sputtering purple arc lamps, the faces of the men coming home from work, some still alive with the last pulse of hope or courage, some sly and bitter, some smart and silly, most of them already broken and empty. No life, only blinding tiredness. Worse than any tired animal, the sour smells of 1,000 suppers of fried potatoes and fried cabbage bled into the street. I was giddy and sick, and out of my misery I felt rising a terrible anger, and out of the anger an absolute vow. Today, the evil is clean and prosperous, but it is everywhere. You don't have to take a streetcar to find it. And it is the same evil, and the misery and the anger and the vow are the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And let's keep that going for all of our readers in the first round, please.